Stratégique
du Paris and the Human Rights Institute of Lyon in France. He has extensive experience in election support and governance, has served as a program officer in the GERDDES Africa, and worked with the International Foundation for Electoral Systems in Cotonou and in Kigali. In 2003, Ambassador Oke became deputy team leader for a USAID project in Benin, focusing on elections, microfinance, and child trafficking. From 2006 to 2023, he led ECOWAS election assistance efforts across 15 countries, subsequently becoming the ECOWAS permanent representative to the AU in April of 2023. Ambassador Oke has represented ECOWAS in various international conferences and was selected as one of 100 experts to observe the US elections in 2008. Hopefully he will come back this year to observe again our elections. And he served also as the permanent secretary of the ECOWAS network of electoral management bodies from 2008 to 2023. So we're very delighted to have you with us this afternoon. I also want to introduce to the audience Jean-Claude Abec, who is a PhD student with us here in the Department of African Studies. His research area focuses broadly on private military corporations or companies operating in Africa, and has a lot of overlap in terms of regional expertise in areas. So he will be leading the discussion for us and then moderating Q&A after Ambassador Oke's remarks. Thank you so much for being here.
So, thank you, Madam. First of all, I will thank your university inviting me to give me this opportunity to express myself in front of you today about ECOWAS good governance architecture for peace and security. And we will talk about the challenge and the way forward to sustain democracy in West Africa. But before we start talking, I want to show you one thing. This table, I don't know if you can see very well. The interest of this table is that it shows you all the coup d'etat we are having in Africa since 2003. 2003 to the last one in Niger. Why I'm showing this table? Because ECOWAS architecture was established, finally approved and signed by all the member states in 2001. And just after 2001, in 2003, the first coup d'etat was in Guinea-Bissau. Despite the fact that all the member states, they signed 0 coup d'etat in member states. In 2003, the first coup d'etat in Guinea-Bissau, followed by Guinea another coup in 2006, followed by Niger. There was a coup in 2010, Mali in 2012, and Guinea-Bissau again, 2012, and Burkina Faso. I want to show you that from 2003 coup d'etat, the first coup after our supplementary protocol, to the last coup in Burkina, ECOWAS architecture was working. We were deploying all the mechanisms to bring the country back to constitutional situation. But what happened? Suddenly, in 2023, with Niger coup, all the mechanisms we set up with the first three coups, Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, stopped because of Niger. So you see how it is now in the picture of West Africa. So why it's up, that is what we will develop. That is the challenge of this mechanism of conflict prevention. So, in introduction, I can tell you that following decades of post-independence instability, the third wave of democratization set off by the end of the Cold War in the late was adopted, making democracy the only acceptable system of governance for ECOWAS member states. And all ECOWAS member states, they signed that protocol. Signing this, it opened up an area of democratic progress, with most ECOWAS member states gradually adopting democratic constitution that makes provision for separation of power of executive, legislative, and judiciary. So the three powers must be separate. I think it's the minimum for democratic system. When the powers are separate, there's a need for popular participation in decision making, secularism of the state, freedom association, freedom of the press, and tenure limit for elected presidents. From 2001 to 2016, the conduct of election at regular intervals became the norm in all the countries in the region. Despite the holding regular election, however, the development aspiration of the citizens remain largely unmet, with very little by way of job creation, healthcare provision, and infrastructural development. So, despite the fact that elections were organized regularly, there is no dividend of a democracy to the citizen, and that is the problem. So, now, after years of jobless economic growth coupled with a growing democratic bug, the exasperated populace started questioning the merit of Western-style liberal democracy, with some thought leaders agreeing that democracy may not be the most suitable system of governance to achieve the development aspiration of citizens. People start asking questions. It is in this context that the region started experiencing episodes of terrorist activity, violent religions, extremist inter-communal clashes, and finally, a resurgence of military takeover of government, starting with the August 2021 overthrow of democratic elected president of Mali. Today, after 6 successful coups d'etat in 4 member states, the consensus is that democracy is facing an existential crisis in the region. So, now we will talk about the contemporary state of governance in West Africa. Then I will show you the different system, the different regime we are having now in Africa. First of all, that is what everybody expects: democracy. Democracy denotes a governance system in which leaders rule through popular power or popular supremacy. Everybody knows that. It is a governance system in which citizens organize their society indirectly through elected representatives. Democracy, therefore, cannot a political system that empowers citizens to hold government accountable and responsible to their aspiration for improved lives and livelihoods. Under a democracy, governments rule through consultation, consent, persuasion, and dialogue. Very important, dialogue. Now, we have also autocracy. This is a political system that is distinct opposite to democracy. It disempowers citizens from holding government accountable, although at times they are elected. Because it's not because they are elected that it's a democratic. In some instances, citizens are allowed to participate in sham elections that only serve to accord cosmetic legitimacy to the autocratic regime. Autocracy is unaccountable and responsive to the needs and aspirations of populace. It is leader will overwhelming power. In such a system, all executive, legislative, and judicial powers rest in the hand of the leader, who is powerful and the most powerful. He is like God, but he cannot be God. So, once decision has been made, they impose and expect obedience from the citizen. Now, the last one, after autocracy, we have anocracy. Anocracy is at the middle. It's semi-democratic and semi-autocratic. So you have some democratic principles and some autocratic principles in anocracy. So despite the adoption of ECOWAS protocol on democracy and good governance by all member states, a 2019 ranking on the Democracy Index of Economist Intelligence Unit categorized the 15 member states as follows. We have 4 countries where you can see autocracy. 8 are hybrid, semi-democratic and semi-autocratic. And 3, we can say 3, I kind of think that those 3 are democratic. It's Cape Verde, Senegal, and Ghana. Well, why I can tell you that Cape Verde is democratic? I can give you an example of the legal framework. When the incumbent is candidate, he has to suspend his term and campaign as ordinary candidates. You cannot see that system anywhere in West Africa. You are candidate and you are incumbent, you suspend your term, you go and campaign like every candidate, and the day of election, when they close the polling station, you come back to sit, waiting for the results. That is one example. The second example is in Cape Verde, when you campaign, during the campaign, there's no rich candidate who will buy all the communication or journalist or media service. No. It's the state who pay the media service to cover all the meeting of the candidates. Nobody can say, I'm rich, I can pay all the media. It's the state who is paying the media. And if you have 15 times, your time to intervene at the television is 15 times, and you are not coming or you don't present, the screen will put your name 15 minutes before it will close. So, last example is that in 2001, the difference between the winner and the loser was 11 votes. 11 votes, and the loser congratulates the winner. So that is something. And now, why I say Senegal, despite the recent the development in Senegal, why I can affirm that Senegal is democratic? We know that Senegal has democratic culture. But last time, the president wanted to extend his term. But the Constitutional Court said, no way. You have to leave power April 2nd. So, do everything to organize election to release the power. So, now, they say it's because of the political situation, we have to organize a dialogue. And during the dialogue, they were suggesting that he stay up to June before organizing election. The Constitutional Court said, no way, we give you up to 31st March to organize election. But as in the Constitution, the head of state is the one who will invite voters for votes. Because Constitutional Court said 31st of March, he said, no, election will be organized 24th of March. I think he used his power also, but according to the law, he cannot go beyond 31st March. So I think democracy, one meaning of the democracy is all institutions use his power differently. And I think we can affirm that democracy is working in those countries. So it should be recalled that since 2021, 4 member states, Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Niger, are now under military dictatorship. So, considering that democracy is the only governance system that can go a long way in tackling the region's most pressing socio-economic challenge, including poverty, hunger, unemployment, and inequality, the both categorization explain why hunger, poverty, and insecurity are very widespread in the region. Now we can talk briefly about West Africa tortuous democratic journey, because it's not easy. It's a journey of democracy. So, if you remember, I don't know if you have, you know, the history of West Africa. Following the prolonged social, political, and economic crisis that my country, Republic of Benin, had experienced since 1986. The revolutionary Marxist-Leninist government of the Republic of Benin convened a 10 days sovereign national conference in February 1990. The decision of that conference set the stage for the country's political and ideological pivot towards democracy government. This epoch making events set the stage for a wave of democratic transition in West Africa, with countries that were hitherto under the grip of military dictatorship and autocratic rule, gradually transitioning to democracy through the conduct of election in Mali. So following our national conference in Benin, it starts, and Mali also did its conference and organized democratic election in April 1992. Following Mali, you have Ghana in November 1992. Nigeria in May 1999 organized democratic election, the first one in Nigeria, and Cote d'Ivoire in 2000, Liberia in 2005. During this period, the regional organization also established governance, peace, and security architecture, adopting the first framework, legal framework was in 1991, when ECOWAS adopted the Declaration of Political Principles in Freedom, People's Rights, and Democratization. After adopting that, it followed the protocol relating to the mechanism for conflict prevention, management, resolution, peacekeeping, and security. This was adopted in 1990 after the war of Sierra Leone and Liberia. The head of state, they adopted that protocol on conflict management resolution in 1999. But after adopting that, they noticed that it's not enough, because after election, it's always crisis. There is always crisis after election. That's why they decided to add the supplementary protocol on democracy and good governance signed in 2001 in Dakar, completed by ECOWAS Conflict Prevention Framework in 2008. So you see progressively how from 1991, we adopt the principle of democratization. After that, 1999, conflict protocol on conflict prevention. It was not enough because there's still crisis. Now, supplementary protocol of 2001 on democracy and good governance. And that protocol, what is key, it's zero coup d'etat. It mentioned in that protocol. Zero coup d'etat and zero unconstitutional change. So, all of that was followed by the ECOWAS Conflict Prevention Framework of 2008. So, in 2010, despite all this architecture, a trend of democratic reversal insidiously started to emerge, characterized by a weakening down of key democratic institutions, weakening down of civil society voice, weakening down of the media through proliferation of private outfit, rampant corruption in both the public and private sector, and politicization of security agencies. So You see, despite the actor, they find a way to weed down civil society. Sometimes it's those civil society who fought for them to get power. But when they took power, they know that civil society, they have the strength to put them away. So they start weakening civil society to avoid they use their strength. It's sad, but that is the reality. The democratic decline was also demonstrated through a loss of faith in election with declining voter turnout. According to International Foundation of Election System Election Guide, voter turnout has steadily plummeted across the region, dropping from first in Benin. Voter turnout dropped from 87.74% in 2001 to 64.03% in 2016. That is in Benin. Now, in Ghana, voter turnout dropped from 85.59% in 2004 to 68.62% in 2016. That is Ghana. In Nigeria, this is serious. Voter turnout dropped from 69.08% in 2003 to 34.75% in 2019. That is Nigeria. Now in Senegal, voter turnout dropped from 70.62% in 2007 to 66.23% in 2019 in Senegal. So you see gradually, the meaning of that is there's a loss of trust, of confidence in actor or in the system. So similarly, governance in the region failed to address some of the core pillars of democracy, such as participation and representation. Whereas all adult citizens should fully participate in the electoral process within the confines of relevant national laws and in compliance with regional, continental, and international norms, values, and principles. Women and youth representation in national assemblies in the region has remained very low. Indeed, despite more than 1/3 of African 1 billion citizens being between age of 15 and 34 years, and women representing over 50.13% of total population, the Inter-Parliamentary Union in 2021 report on youth participation in national parliament revealed that only 16.59% of parliamentarians in West Africa were under 40 years, while only 17% were women, despite the fact that women are more than men, they represent in parliament. 17%. So, women, you have work to do. Therefore, a faith in democracy and election so did public trust leadership institution. Now we will see the level of public trust in democratic institutions. Reference to Afrobarometer data 2019 to 2021. These cover 34 African countries showed that trust in institutions was highest for religious leaders, 66%, and traditional leaders, 51%. In contrast, public trust was lowest for democratic institutions such as opposition party. The trust is 31%. Parliament, 36%. Ruling party, 36%. Local government authority, 38%. And electoral management body, only 39%. So, it's the electoral management body organizing election. If there's no trust, you see what will happen. Being the cornerstones of representative democracy, revealing public trust in political party is a major cause of concern. One of the major causal factors for this loss of public trust in political parties is linked to the incessant intra-party and inter-party conflict, which are a consequence of weak inter-party democracy and political tolerance. So, inter-party democracy is not working, and there are always conflicts. So, citizens, they are watching what is happening. Those people are the same. It's their own interest. Likewise, the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 further exacerbated this reversal with a declaration of state of emergency. National lockdown, restriction of the right of movement, and the deployment of soldiers in communities. While it means to curb the spread of the pandemic, this measure has the effect of severely constraining the democratic and civic space. Now, what can ECOWAS do to sustain democracy in West Africa? In order to address the seeming democracy reversal in Africa, the Regional Economic Community, ECOWAS, urgently has to recalibrate its intervention in such a way that enables it to tackle some of these challenges. First, with a view to resolve the loss of faith in election, ECOWAS has to embark on a concerted civic and voter education effort in all member states. This democracy and peace education should form part of both formal and informal education system in the region. Secondly, ECOWAS has to ensure that EMBs in the region undertake their mandate independently and impartially without fear, favor, or prejudice, with a view to enhance public trust in the institution. You know, when democracy started, before democracy, it was a Ministry of Interior organizing election. When we start democracy, the stakeholders, they decide that, no, if a Ministry of Interior is organizing and the incumbent is a candidate, he cannot be independent. That's why they agreed to set up an electoral commission in each country. And as we are talking, the 15 countries in West Africa have electoral management body, electoral commission. Where is the problem now? Normally, the Electoral Commission must be in charge of the whole process because it's supposed to be independent from power, from opposition, from government. But all the country adopt that, but the attribution of that Electoral Commission changed. In some country, the Electoral Commission can organize from the beginning to the end the election. But in other countries, the attribution of the Electoral Commission is just to observe, and the ministry is still organizing. So, but for example, in Quebec, the Electoral Commission is totally independent, and when you meet them and you ask questions, they have the constitution and electoral law. You see, first of all, they are all judge, magistrate. So independent, and organized election. And that is why there is trust in the process. The third one is in order to safeguard the three core values of democracy: participation, representation, and inclusiveness. ECOWAS has to design and implement program aimed at enhancing meaningful roles for women, young people, and persons with disability. I was shocked one day we follow a conference on persons with disability participation in election. We are talking about inclusivity. Always we focus that involving opposition, including, but we forget that the person of disability, like those, how do you call them in English? They have white hair. They can, albinos. They cannot see during the sun. They start seeing after 6 p.m. One of them intervened and said, "You are talking about inclusivity. That you start election at 7, you close at 5 p.m. How do you want us to participate in the election?" Everybody was calm because we didn't think about it at all. That's one aspect of inclusivity. So, ECOWAS must sensitize all the country to take all those aspects in account to sustain democracy. Fourth one, as ECOWAS looks to deepen and consolidate its work in promoting democracy and electoral integrity, there is a need to expand the scope to include issue of decentralization and devolution of power. This could mean taking greater interest in the conduct of local government elections, because now we concentrate only on national election. You see, only national election. So it will be good to go to local election and yes, local election. Excuse me. Alors, oui, je suis en pleine conférence. Excuse me. So, we are at the end. We also have to organize and consider initiating programs aimed to providing technical and advisory support to EMB, electoral management body, they need a technical and advisory program. So those are clearly what ECOWAS has to focus on. But in conclusion, I can tell you that ECOWAS is the best integrated community of Africa up to. Despite all these tentatives of coup, ECOWAS is the best in Africa for now, because the coup having is the crisis we are having in West Africa are the crisis of maturity of democracy. When you compare to other regions, when this crisis there's coup, it's a form of expression of the citizen that you don't agree. But the coup is not accepted, but it's a form of expression of the citizen. It's a form to disagree, and ECOWAS has a mechanism to bring the system back to constitutional. But now, the problem is, I was the head of technical team going through ECOWAS technical, working with Guinea, Burkina, all of them, on a chronogram to bring back constitutional order. And all of them were supposed to organize elections this year, 2024. But you know what they told us? And constitutional change is not only coup d'etat. Why ECOWAS doesn't react when there is manipulation of constitution? So that is the question, and we can open the discussion. Thank you for listening to me.
I'm going to just turn it over to my colleague Jean-Paul to start us off with, I guess, some remarks, and I'm sure that he has a number of questions for the ambassador.
Well, thank you very much. Ambassador, you can have a seat if you.
Okay.
Wow. So thank you for that very comprehensive presentation. Very profound, comprehensive. I think we got so much than we anticipated. But I'd like to start off with where you ended in terms of the status of ECOWAS. And I think that most scholars and policymakers share the same view, that ECOWAS happens to be the most, and that's arguably the most successful model of regional governance in Africa. So I think you ended with that. But a good part of why we gather here today is, even though we have access to the internet to read all of these statistics, I think many people in the audience would like to know more internally what's going on as you do your visits, you meet states, different countries. ECOWAS relies more in terms of internal diplomacy, outdoor and all of that. So we want to really know, hearing from you. I think most of my questions will center around those parts that we cannot access as well. And so ECOWAS, I would like to start by sharing that ECOWAS is quite large, but I think the population now is about 400 million. That's more than the size of the United States, population of the United States. So we're dealing with a very complex region here. Whether you're talking about the youth population, I think you mentioned some of the age groups, and very young population, but we're also dealing with a region that is going through different phases and facets of conflict. And it's very interesting that you mentioned that some of the coups that we see is a sign of maturity, which I find very, I find very, I think it's something we'll talk about. But I think my first question really is just to, when we look at ECOWAS, all the challenges that we've talked about, and give us an insider perspective in terms of what we consider to be the top two challenges. That's an internal perspective, and then tell us maybe some of the external challenges that you think parties going to actually try to grapple with, especially some of the recent issues that was.
No, it's very, very interesting question. For me, the first challenge is the limit of the power of ECOWAS, the sovereignty of the member state. Because when you see the ECOWAS architecture on democracy and conflict prevention, all the process is described. The principles are there of separation of power, everything. But when ECOWAS, for example, use the mechanism to help opponent to get power, the man will change. He will be the first to tell you your mechanism. This is sovereign country. So, like that, what can you do? I can tell you that Guinea in 2010, I was there, how ECOWAS fought and set up a contact group. After the coup, we set up a contact group to follow how the putschis will organize themselves to come back to election. We organize election, we assist, we give all sorts of assistance, financial, technical, and everything. First round, after the result, the opponent made 26 points to resolve before the second round. We were obliged to agree with stakeholders to put a Malian as a chair of electoral commission in Guinea. It's the only one time foreigner can manage electoral commission in another country. We did all that effort for the man to win. This opponent, he won. In the constitution, it's 2 terms. You were in opposition, you claim that the man who was there must respect the 2 terms. There was coup. We did everything, transition to bring, and you won the election. You did the first term, and now, second term, you change the constitution, saying that it's a new constitution that you have to be candidate again. Yes, that is the problem. And when ECOWAS want to intervene, to let you know, you say, this is sovereign country, don't interfere in internal. So that is the first limit of ECOWAS. Member states must know that when they sign the protocol, when they sign the legal instrument, they release a part of their sovereignty to the organization to work. If that is not respected, it will continue. That is the first. The second key problem is the dividend of democracy. Since 1990, we are doing democracy. We are electing stakeholders, we are electing head of state, the citizen. What is his interest? What's the impact on his life? There's no. That's why people don't have that. They have the same. I went for survey in Niki. Niki is a rural village in my country. I went there after 5 years of democratization in my country. I did an interview to the king of the village. What is the impact of the democracy on your village, on you here? He said he didn't see any change. The change is with you, white men in Cotonou. You see the difference. So now there's a problem. Democracy, yes, but impact of democracy in citizen life. In each family, you have people with degree, but they are sitting at home. And the parent must give food every time. People are 50 years old, but at home. They don't know when they will get married. That is the key problem we are having. So, if we want to sustain democracy, we have to show the impact of democracy in citizens for them to trust.
Impact of democracy.
Impact of democracy. If not, let me say it's the same thing. Even it's gain or democracy, or even there's alternance or the same person continue. What is the change in my life? I don't see it.
So, wow. So, I know you talked about sovereignty, and I think in the protocol, the 2008 protocol, the amendment that was done in 2008, one of the, I think that's section 2, paragraph 4 talks about ECOWAS really wants to move away from sovereignty to supranationality, where I think this is akin to what we have in the European Union or the EU, the system that operates in the EU, that's supranational governance. So one of the emphasis that ECOWAS is making is to move away from this idea of sovereignty, where it takes power from the states and gives it to a larger body. And also part of that move will also see a move from regime-centric security to people, human security. And I was wondering, I think what has happened, on the continent recently, it's really exposed is that whether ECOWAS is paying attention to people or the heads of states or the political leadership class. And a good example of this is the idea of sanctions. Following the coup in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, sanctions were meted out without any regard to public, how the public would fare and all that. And of course, they came back and, they receded those sanctions. So the question is, what is ECOWAS actually doing to ensure that this aspect of sovereignty, what can be done? I know you mentioned that heads of states or the countries have to come with, they have to be honest, they have to come willing to seek power. But beyond that, are we saying that this is just going to be talk and just depend on the goodwill of political leaders, or is there something that ECOWAS can do to address this?
No. It cannot be talk and talk. What I can say at this level is in ECOWAS region today, you can move freely. Free movement without visa. I can tell you that from country to other country, there's a juxtaposed border. In 5 minutes, you leave Nigeria, you give your passport here, they will say go in Benin. That is very successful action. And it's working. We have ECOWAS passport. We have with ECOWAS insurance. There are many things done for citizens. But citizens concrete job, they have to make effort. If not, it's not everything bad. And when they are saying supra-nationality, it's a vision. It's a vision that we have to be one, because in ECOWAS we are very, very much integrated. And what is the base of those coup d'etat you mentioned? It starts by insecurity. When you go to Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, let me say, there is insecurity, but they don't see the way the government is responding. There's no equipment, and terrorists are more equipped than them. So that is why most of the soldiers, they think that they have to take the power to manage insecurity themselves. But when we meet them, we say, according to ECOWAS norm, if you you came to power by a coup, you have to quickly release the power because it's not your role to develop country, to resolve health, to give job. It's not a transition. So a short transition to come back to constitutional order. But the thing that is when it's coup by military, ECOWAS becomes strong. But when there is manipulation of constitution to stay in power, ECOWAS. So ECOWAS has to work and be strong every time. Then there will be confidence. That's what I think. If not, it's a vision, and I think this vision is still working. There is alliance of those countries you are talking about. There's many alliances within ECOWAS. There's no incompatibility between those alliances of countries. Is alliance of same interest. The alliance is to fight against insecurity. ECOWAS cannot be against. ECOWAS also has a strategy of fighting against insecurity. So ECOWAS can collaborate. But when they are saying they will withdraw from ECOWAS, the principle, when you are there in ECOWAS, it clearly mentioned when you want to withdraw, you notify. And it will 1 year later, it will be effective. Even you say we are leaving now, you cannot leave now. You have to wait New Year because there's a process, and the process is on. That is it. The process is not. You know, when we created ECOWAS, it was 16 countries. Mauritanians, they left, but today they want to come back. Morocco want to join ECOWAS, despite the fact they are not in West Africa. So ECOWAS is not as bad as people think, but there's something to improve. It's not as bad as because some countries they want to join ECOWAS.
Absolutely. I agree. I think ECOWAS has a lot. Obviously, it's an institution in progress, in building. But before I turn it over to the audience, I'm sure people have questions they'd like to ask you. There's something very particular about ECOWAS, which has to do with the legitimacy of the leaders themselves. And that's the complaint that we find every now and then about the core leadership of ECOWAS. And this has to do with, I think there is a clause that talks about the chairman of ECOWAS has to be a sitting president. And one of the flaws that we find is that even presidents that have come to power have been allowed, have been elected to sit as chairman. How can a body that is hoping that leaders will have the will to see power in this light?
Are you talking about ECOWAS?
Yes.
No. There's confusion. No coup maker is allowed to sit down in ECOWAS. It's zero tolerance. That one, you can make your research. As I'm talking to you, none of them has access to summit or to any meeting. Even the ambassador. For ECOWAS. Now, if we are talking about a novel organization, but for ECOWAS, no, those who did a coup is invited to sit down to resolve it.
So these coup makers, we're talking about coups. So you come through a coup, but then you go through a democratic process, then you organize election, and you become a civilian. So that's what we're talking. We're not talking about a sitting military.
Okay.
Yes.
So now you see why we are having problem now. It's because in ECOWAS regulation, when you make a coup, you have to organize transition and organize election without being candidate. That is the principle. And you will see in the table, sometimes the man who make a coup, put civilian, and after he removes civilian again. What happened for Mali, for example? When ECOWAS say, you organize a coup, you cannot be candidate. So the man respected and put civilian there. And now he saw in other country in Africa, it's not West Africa. He saw that they tolerate the man who made a coup to be candidate. So now he say, I know. Sometime they will go behind the ECOWAS. They will say the problem is because they are member of ECOWAS. So they are also member of African Union. So they will pass by ECOWAS to go to African Union to discuss. Because they think that ECOWAS is too strict. That is the first principle. That is why there is complication between the relationship between ECOWAS and those coup makers. Because ECOWAS said, you make a coup, you will organize transition, but you cannot be candidate for election.
I think that's very good.
So give the floor to.
So let's turn it over. Yes, please.
Well, thank you very much for an excellent, insightful presentation of ECOWAS and the nature of democracy as we experience in West Africa. The question is, it's a question of curiosity, that Africa, and I'm not talking necessarily about ECOWAS in the broader sense, including North Africa, it is very coup-prone, coup d'etat prone, which I'm not sure if any African language has an equivalent of that French term. I don't speak any of the languages, even local languages. I'm curious to see if there is an equivalency of that. But the reason that it is coup-prone has been is because this Western-style democratic institutions do not deliver results or produce results. So here's my question. When will we see Africa, and again very broadly speaking, coming up with its own democracies with African characteristics, which is devoid of this Western-style political parties that are divisive and artificial in many ways, and create their own African-style democracy, which is based on tribes and other things that is not really related to Westerners, where democracy evolved under Enlightenment and Renaissance, under a totally different culture. And I'm suspicious that Westerners are weaponizing democracy for Africans to intervene and intrude and do anything they want to see if you measure up to them.
Totally agree with you. We invented our system of our traditional political system is totally disturbed. Today, we are not African, we are not European, so we are between. That is the key problem we are having. We have good constitutionalists who can sit down and find the system, adapt to Africa. But for me, where we are now, the first thing we have to do to be veritable independent is we have to work hard. For me, it was the only one way to move to have independence is to work very, very hard. Because the first time I went to South Korea, in 1961, South Korea and my country passed South Korea. But I went to South Korea in 2013. I cried. Our philosophy must be walk, walk and walk. It will say only one way. Because if you want to sit down and say, this system, we did, in my country, we did socialist. When my country got independence in 1960, from 1960 to 1972, we have 12 heads of state. 12 head of state. There was one head of state. In the morning he was head of state, and in the evening, coup d'etat, he's no more head of state. Everything become politic in our country. Everything, even to resolve anything, it must be politic. You go to market, it's politic. You go to stadium, it's politic. So, instead of walking, walk must be priority. If not, there's no independence. If we African people, we don't decide to walk, and we are looking for facility. Everybody is doing politics for what? For pocket. Because when you do politics, you are rich, you have power, you have everything. How can we move? So that is the real problem. Our traditional organization of society is totally disturbed. Is totally disturbed. So, I don't know what system we will adopt now, and people, they won't find the way to go around. That's why I say the only way for us to be totally independent is to work. If we don't work, we are not going anywhere. That's what I cannot say. Because we have everything in our countries. We have fuel, we have manganese, we have oil, we have gold, we have everything. That we are sitting on it. We don't know what is under our mind. We are sitting on it. That is the problem. In one country in West Africa, when you land, you have to take boat to go to the capital. Chinese, they come, they say, why you take boats every time to cross the sea? I will build the bridge for you free, but everything under your sea will be for me.
Thank you, Excellency, for this opportunity. My name is Lana Casa. I'm a junior international business major, finance concentration, and I was born and raised in Gwanda, Ethiopia, which is in East Africa region, understandably. However, I have seen similar issues growing up within the political climate and stuff of that sort. And with the recent news of Niger and everything going on, I do have a question that kind of builds on my professor's question. While we understand the democracy in the sense of Africa, history has shown us again and again, it is not truly attainable in Africa. And we have seen coups, we've seen different types of Western governments with communism and socialism and authoritarian and all of that sort. We see that the coup of August 2033 in Niger has gotten the attention of many people. More importantly, the actions against France that they took, demanding that France exodus. And this brought with the coup declaration success and the want of the French to exit the society of Western Africa, how does the ECOWAS believe that democracy is attainable without true independence and liberation from Western world, and by truly closing our gates from their influences? And I do mean by Western, including Russia and China, and including the European Union and the United States. And with this, I would just like to ask, I do know you answered part of this question with my professors, but I do want to understand the point of view of what does true liberal freedom mean for Africa, and as how do we attain that while still trying to help us grow within the economic sense and within the political sense? Because we are coming to a community that doesn't have work ethic. Work ethic is not Africa. Work ethic is the Germans, that's Protestants, that's theirs. How do you bring that and translate it to us? And my professor did ask, what is coup d'etat in an African native language? My country, we call it Mefenkalamangus, and it means uprooting and starting a new government system. You don't pertainly build that government system with the previous one, but you start your own. And with this sense, I would just like to understand from your point of view, what are some ways to go attaining it, considering that ECOWAS is not an overruling power of West Africa or Africa as its own. These countries do have their sovereign rights with their own cultures and with their own customs. How do you make sure you're not offending them and respecting them while also giving them the opportunity to grow as independent sovereign nations? Sorry.
So I told you the only way to grow is to work.
Right.
The real independence. And don't we Africans, we don't have to forget that we are accusing some countries, but they have their interest. That's why they want to influence. But we ourselves, do we know our interest? That is the question we have to ask ourselves. It's simple to accuse people, yes, they are influenced, but you yourself, we went to the same school with those people. Some of our leaders were teachers of those leaders we are talking about. Why can't we sit down and think about our interests? Before colonization, our transitional system, there's no coup d'etat. But it was well organized because everybody, there were principles, and everybody respected. Even the king, when the king saw that he didn't respect the principle, he knows what to do. He must resign. They are minister who, so our society was not bad organized, but it has been destroyed. And now we have to wake up and think about our own interests. Each continent, each country, European country, America, they have their interests. It's normal. But you who are in Africa, it's time to think about your interests and to discuss based on your interests. They come to exploit your thing. You have to negotiate, discuss. We have capacity now. But why? Why? The problem is ourselves, and we have to recognize that it's ourselves, and we have to sit down, think about how to move on. If not, we sit down and say, no, it's France, it's US, it's Russia. That is not the solution. You leave France, you go to Russia. You leave Russia, you go to France. Or you go to Germany, or you go to US. Is it the solution? The solution is ourselves. We have to sit down, think, work, think about the interests of our country, of our region, and move on. We have the capacity. Why can't us? That is it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm ready for any question. Ready.
I was going to say, I have a question, but go on. Yes, then go, please.
Thank you for your presentation. Yes, so you were talking about how there were many coups d'etat in different countries, and when you go and challenge them, they ask you, what did you do when other country they manipulated the constitution? So have you, at the level of ECOWAS, thought about how to sanction those who manipulate constitution, or those who start a third term while it's not allowed? Because there should be equal treatment, because that is a coup d'etat too. I agree with them. I agree when they say, okay, we military people, we went and used our weapon to change government, is the same thing that the other people is doing. So you have to be firm and have a way to prevent those things. So do you have anything?
You know, I understand what you are saying, but the difference between those who manipulate and those who do good. Those who manipulate are elected, and is during the term they use the internal process to change, because there's in the constitution there's a process to revise, to make revision. Now the problem is the revision you are making, is it a new constitution? That is the problem. And that's why one professor, eminent professor of Benin constitutionalist, he said, to talk about new constitution is 4 cases. Huh? The first case is you do coup d'etat, so you stop the process and you start a new process. Like in Cuba, they were capitalists and they become socialists under Fidel Castro. That one you can say it's a new constitution. If you are a new state recognized by the UN, like you did the secession and you recognized by UN international community. So it's a new constitution. If you organize national conference sovereign who decide to change the system of government, it's a new constitution. And the 4th one, I don't know. So he has 4 cases of new constitution. Out of those 4 cases, you cannot say it's a new constitution, now it's the new republic. It's not possible. So they are abusing, and as their head of state, when they are doing that, ECOWAS is limited because of sovereignty. He's elected head of state, and he will tell you that based on my constitution, this is the process to revise because I want to avoid conflict and so. That is the difference with somebody who leave his barrack and take power. Then ECOWAS is more stronger to say, no, you are not legitimate. That is the problem we are having. And I think we are working on how to face those kind of situations, because it's clear now that constitutional manipulation is also coup d'etat. So ECOWAS is working on it to tackle it as we are tackling coup d'etat. In our norms, the protocol of 2001, democracy and government, it was clearly written that it's 0 coup d'etat. So it's not written 0 manipulation of constitution. So 0 coup d'etat is written clearly. So that's why, based on that, you say you have signed. So your country signed the protocol. Please, the principle is 0 coup d'etat. But what you have to know is that ECOWAS assists those authors of coup d'etat to bring back the constitutional norm. It's not that we go and we push them out. No, we work with them, we assist them, we send a technical team to discuss with them the way to quietly move back to constitution. There are many things.
Another question is, those countries who left ECOWAS, are they trying to come back, or
they don't leave ECOWAS yet? they have 1 year before it will be effective. They have the intention to leave ECOWAS for now. So they have 1 year. After 1 year, we'll know if they are leaving or not. I can tell you now that there are some, because ECOWAS region citizens cannot be separate. Do you know that between border of Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, there is a house and the rooms are in Cote d'Ivoire and the city room is in Ghana? Do you know that? That is the reality.
Thank you, Master. I think you have a question.
Well, I'll just ask a quick question. This is, you know, with regards to, I guess it follows on actually his question, just with regards to like ECOWAS membership. You know, I mean, has there ever been, or is there any conversation or discussion about, you know, membership not being simply based on geography, just simply because you're a West African state, you're a member of ECOWAS? I mean, I'm thinking of, and again, we don't have to follow. It's not to necessarily follow European models or Western models, but you know, just by virtue of being in Europe, you're not automatically a member of the EU, and you're certainly not automatically a member of NATO, right? And that has some pluses. So, I mean, has there ever been any discussion? And you said, oh, Morocco wants to be a member. So, has there ever been, or is there any discussion about having of evaluating the criteria for membership in ECOWAS?
No, the criteria. The first criteria is geographical criteria. When
wouldn't you agree that there's limitations to that, because you end up with a whole bunch of?
It can be limitation, but it's West African state.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It's West African state, and we have the same community. My name is Okay. The origin is in Nigeria. Yes. So we want to have integrated, and we are integrated. So that's why it's difficult to leave North Africa and to say you want to be a member. We can collaborate with you. We can partnership. Many of the countries, they have partnership. We don't need visa to circulate between our space. Morocco will accept that without visa we come there.
Sure, if they're a member.
The 15 countries without visa to come to Morocco? I'm not sure. Perhaps they will accept, I don't know, but I'm not sure.
If those are the criteria.
But the criteria is West Africa.
Interesting. Okay.
For now, it can change. But for now, they have some kinds of states wanted Morocco to come. But when they sit down, they say, it's West Africa integration. Because at the beginning, it was economic integration. Free movement of goods, of persons. So before we leave our space to go to Morocco freely, you have to pass through some countries who are not part of ECOWAS. What do? You do. So there are many things to resolve before we will accept. But we are not close. We are open for collaboration. But that is it for now.
Well, thank you, Pastor. And I know we're short on time, so this will be the last. I'll just maybe the last question for you. And we were talking about the integration, which is the reason for the geographic integration. ECOWAS, obviously 15 member states, 8 of which are French, 5 are English, and then 2 are Portuguese. Now, we clearly, all the suspended states are French, and the cool issues are happening within French West Africa. So there is clearly a problem in terms of when we're talking about cultural. So is there anything that ECOWAS is doing to integrate French and Portuguese, especially when it has to do with governance, so that we're not seeing these spots? And of course, we know France has been a big issue in terms of the inventor. So what is ECOWAS doing to realign inside the different
much of that. There are many activities and there are many directorates working on those aspects. You know, French, English, and Portuguese, they are different styles of colonization. This impact to our law. This impact our law. That's why ECOWAS is trying to set up a network for harmonization. For election, for example, we set up ECOWAS network of electoral commission to share a best practice of each. Let me tell you that when we are saying electoral commission, independent electoral commission, in Lusophone country, they say we don't need to put independent before we know that the commission is independent. It's based on the work we know that they're independent. Sometimes they are right. You don't have Seni or Sena in it. National Electoral Commission. That in Francophone country you will have independent or autonomous electoral commission. But what about how they work? Are they independent? It's not the name, it's the action. So we set up this to harmonize. Human rights also, we set up Human Rights Association to harmonize. Is progressively we will come to the total integration. But I can tell you that population, they are fully integrated. They don't care about what is happening. The border, each border is free. They are passing, going, passing without problem. Now is a formalization of the integration. But to one thing which is very effective is the local language. Local language between our community. I'm from Benin, I can speak Yoruba. I can speak Mina. So that makes the integration perfect. Hausa is everywhere. Nigeria, Niger. That's why sometimes ECOWAS use religious or traditional leaders for mediation to go and talk because it has impact. So I think the process is going. It's a process. And there are challenges you have to resolve and move on. But up to now, I think ECOWAS region is still strong despite all those crises. Because we have the mechanisms to resolve the crisis. And I'm sure the crisis will be resolved. That's what I can say.
Wow. Thank you. Can we just give a round of applause?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Very interesting. I mean, it's really a conversation. So,
To be continued.
yes, to be continued. Thank you so much. There's a lot of interest in what's going on now in the region.
Thank you for your invitation.
Wow.